And go.
And let me say before you get started, we are recording the presentation tonight, and we will have that up on the web for everybody's reference.
Good evening, all. This is Dr. Farrow. Welcome to our design update meeting, number 1 for the Collegiate Rocket Launch of 2021. Here's hoping we're going to get through this year better than last year. Okay. Let's do just a quick team roll call here. Carthage, do we have anybody that's online from Carthage? Please unmute your mic. Say hello.
We're here.
Okay. Marquette University. Not hearing anything from Marquette. Let's try MSOE. Anybody there from MSOE? Okay, let's try Green Bay.
We are here.
For all your,
Hello. Not all, but you're.
Go Phoenix. Okay, let's try UW Milwaukee.
Hello.
Sounds good. Platteville? So we have anybody from UW Platteville?
Yep, we're here.
Thank you. Let's try UW River Falls. Not hearing anybody. And how about UW Sheboygan? Not hearing anybody from Sheboygan. Let's check up Marquette. Anybody from Marquette? MSOE? River Falls? Sheboygan. Okay, so we've got Carthage, we've got Green Bay, UWM, and we've got Platteville. So tonight's meeting is, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So tonight's meeting is a less formal than our kickoff meeting. I've got a few slides that I'm going to run through and share some information. Some of it's the same that we've seen before. We've got some update notes to share about the competition. And after we've finished kind of getting through that information, we're going to open up for questions and answers that teams might have working through all the competition. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and get rolling. I'm going to reshare my screen. And flip to this one. There we go. So reshare my screen. So the competition, again, probably the biggest part of this competition is the fact that you have to take data inside your rocket, and you have to control that avionics system before launch while it's on the pad from a designated safe location where you'll be able to use your computer. We'll talk about that in a little more depth later on. Then the rocket's going to fly. It's going to enter the acceptable apogee window, and then it's going to release its first of 2. It's required to have the dual deploy, so the first of 2, the drogue chute, and then as it descends closer to the ground, it would release its main chute. Let's see. So dates, some things happening on the calendar. We'll speak a little more in detail to some of these, but we've made it up to January now. We've got another meeting coming up in a couple weeks that we'll do another virtual design meeting just a week short of the deadline for our critical design review reports. So that'll give people kind of a last minute chance to, if they got stuck on something that they're working on for their CDR, they get a chance to come in and ask questions in that environment if they hadn't had a chance to ask them ahead of time, one-on-one or via email or wherever. Some of the other key things that are happening in there, keep in mind we've got that first payout deadline coming up. That's the deadline to get your documentation into Space Grant so that they can reimburse you for any expenses up to that point. We've got the safety meeting coming up. And the safety meeting, right now, we are replanning what's going to happen with the safety meeting. So we'll talk a little more about that in more in depth in a moment. Then we've got the flight readiness review report and presentation, and then the launch, and then the post-launch information. So that's all still on the calendar, but things that are happening on the calendar may be slightly changing as we move forward. So some of the big parameters in the competition this time is that avionics, as I already mentioned, the fact that we're requiring a dual deploy recovery system, and the downed rocket location aid, that's not new to our competition this year. And then the actual flight, so the flight day, it's going to be scored based on the team's apogee, so the maximum apogee, as well as how close to their predicted altitude are they going to be. So then let's see, going a little more into the avionics, the motor casing temperature, internal pressure of the recovery deployment area, and then at least one other system of the team's choice. The breakaway umbilical, that's really big. That's part of that avionics, and I want to spend a moment talking about that. So this is the style that I'm talking about, this breakaway cable here. At one end, it's going to have a standard USB cable. At the other end, it's going to have a standard connector, and you can get these in different flavors, whether you need a lightning connector, whether you need a micro USB, a USB-C, you can get whatever you need, but things that you need to keep aware of. You as a team are going to be required to supply your cable. They're about on the order maybe another $1 more than buying just a traditional cable without the magnetic end. So like we're saying, $7, $8 for a cable. So it's something the team will have to purchase. That way you know it's compatible with your connector at your end of the system. It's just a standard USB 2 cable. One of the key things to look out for is a lot of these cables are charging only. So make sure when you're purchasing your cable that you get one that will transfer both the data and charge. So the charging only was just carry 2 wires through, and they're a little less expensive than the full data cables. So keep that in mind as you're going through your selection of that cable. If you've got any questions, I'm the one to contact on that information. The other end, so this is the equipment that Space Grant's going to have. So we're going to have a USB extender that's going to allow us to take your cable. And so in this little sketch that I have over here, here's your rocket prepped, and actually it'd be pointing a little more upward than horizontal, hopefully at the time it's on the pad. But the cable is going to connect into the USB connector out at the launch pad. So that's your cable. And then we'll have a system that will feed it back through a network cable all the way back approximately 200 plus feet out near the launch control station. You will have a separate table from that launch control station that's going to allow you to set up your computer and then converse with the rocket out on the launch pad. So we will be supplying that link that gets you that safe distance away from the rocket. So your cable just needs to be about 6 feet long to go from your rocket to our piece of equipment that'll be at the launch pad. Okay. Some other things going on in this competition this year. We've got the ability for you to, as long as you register in advance, you can sign up to get certified. So EEE will certify you, but you will have to build a separate rocket kit from the one that's being flown by your team. And that can only be one person building that kit in order to get the certification. So kind of keep that in mind. You can talk with Bob or Frank, if you want more information about what it's going to take to get your certification levels. The reimbursement. So we've got the reimbursement information, and it's all on the tools and tips slide, which is coming up in just a moment. So kind of keep that in mind. If you're working through your university, they will actually help you with the invoice, and that should have been set up by now or decided by now. If you're working by individuals, the individual has to be registered member of the team in order to be able to get that reimbursement, or it won't be recognized by Space Grant. Is there anything you want to add, Connie or Chris, about the reimbursement?
One of the things is if your team submits any travel reimbursements, you have to put on your forms. Sorry, my video wasn't on because that's kind of boring. So you, on any of your receipts, you need to put the names of the people that are traveling or being expensed out on that. So if it's for food, you need to do, you know, lunch, and it's Perry, it's Kevin, and, you know, 3 different people. So make sure that you provide that information.
Thank you.
I don't have anything more.
Thank you. Let's see. Some other things, keep in mind that the members, again, have to be reimbursed, and our final team rosters will be coming up in a month. That'll be the deadline that you have to get everybody that's actually going to be a part of your team through the competition. Has to be updated on that team roster. And you can contact Connie with that information or with any questions that you've got about that information. So here's our information that's available on the tools and tips page, and you can get to that on the Space Grant website, as well as there's just an unbelievable cache of all sorts of other extremely useful information, not only for the competition, but for all the other aspects of things you can get involved with at Space Grant, as well as some career development assistance type things, like how do you put your letters together and so on. So kind of keep in mind, it's a great resource to turn to when you're trying to prepare information for Space Grant, as well as if you're looking to go on and apply for internships, jobs, etc. So the next big thing coming up is going to be the critical design report. And I've already kind of mentioned that we're going to have one more update meeting before that. So that's going to be on the 11th. And this one, mainly it's to explore your design efforts, your engineering decisions that were made in getting to the point that you're at. So here, things that we're going to be looking for deal with your payload system. How are you setting it up? One of the big questions that we saw over and over again was the concern that, hey, my booster or the rocket engine is down in the lower part of my rocket, and I'm planning to put my eBay in the part that separates at deployment. How do I handle that? So that's a really interesting question that you've had to work around. And we've consulted with a number of teams on sorting that information out. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to want to document in this part of your report. Basically, the other things you've got to talk about then are the actual design of your rocket, the fact that you're including all that needs to be in there. You've gone through and you've analyzed the airframe structure and so on. So you're going to basically be getting into the details of the design of the rocket to really anticipate how it's going to perform in all aspects. As well as probably the other big one that needs to be in there, and it's not counted as part of the page count, are your photos of your construction. So the written portion of the document is one thing, but you should be including, say, an appendix that's going to contain those photos that show and document your construction of your rocket as you're building it. You're going to need those for the safety review meetings that we're going to be doing in order to demonstrate that you've followed good practice in building your rocket and putting the type of reinforcements where they're needed in the rocket to withstand the types of forces involved. Following that, we've got our design safety review, and that meeting, there's been a bit of a complication in the schedule of that meeting, and I'm going to ask Christine if she will come in and join us again on the open your mic.
Yes, sir.
So can you tell the teams what is going on with the safety meeting at this point?
Sure. So EAA contacted us this past week, and my apologies for my family. I have a little one, and he's crying in the background if you can hear him. So thanks everybody for understanding. So EAA contacted us last week, and they are not allowing any external programs to take place at their facilities the first quarter of the year. And so it does mean that our typical safety meeting that would take place at EAA has been canceled for this year. So what we will do is we'll do a virtual safety meeting. And typically what we do is we schedule, we take that same Saturday, and what we'll do is we'll schedule each team for 30 minutes approximately, and they will meet typically Frank will be on the call, Bob Justice, Dr. Firo, Kevin Harnick, myself, we'll all be on there, and we'll go through and ask you questions. You're going to have to show us your rockets, so you have to be prepared to, take it apart, let us see it, have it with you. So whoever's going to be on that call will need to be ready. Now, we understand that there's going to be there's a possibility you all won't be able to be in the same place. So I would encourage you to kind of figure that out as a team. You're going to still have to, be able to each speak to the areas that you've been working on and convince Triple E that you know what you're doing and you're on course, and you're going to have a safe rocket to fly when we're able to fly it, hopefully at launch weekend. So did that take care of everything, Dr. Firo and Frank?
Sounds good to me. We can get more details out by the second design safety or the design review meeting that we'll be having in about a month. So we'll have the sign-up sheets. We'll have figure out how to get teams appointments on the day of the review and all that. So sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Then we've got the flight readiness review report and the as well as the presentations, and those are going to concentrate more on okay, now you've built your rocket, what have you done to verify that systems are going to be working for your rocket? Have you done anything to verify, say, that your remote operation of your avionics can work properly, that you can switch it in and out of that mode? Is your video system for recording your video, is that working? So all those subsystems that you can test without having to actually fly the rocket, you need to demonstrate in your flight readiness review. Theoretically, if this were a normal year, you'd be able to get out and have a little more flexibility at getting a test flight in before the actual flight. And if you do that, if you get a chance to do that, you can report on your planned test flight, how it went, the results of the test flight, and so on. You can still schedule those because Triple E is still flying rockets. They've got to work within the parameters that the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has set down for them, as well as the local communities have set down for that type of interaction of people in the out of doors during this the COVID controls that are in place. But Frank, if you want to join us for a minute, maybe you can mention about how successful your launch days have been going.
We've been holding launches since last end of May last year till the present, and it's been pretty successful so far. People have been appreciating the guidelines that we've established. Of course, we have to establish the same guidelines that the DNR recommends that we go through. So the rangers do come around and check, how many we have at the launch area, and everybody has their PPE on, and that we have a local guidelines for our participants at the event. It's been very successful lately. Has been cooperative, and it's working out fine. So far.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, we talked about that. The presentation. So keep in mind your presentation, probably the biggest thing to take away from that is it's going to be 7 minutes long. We still are planning for in-person presentations at this point in time, but we may have to do some type of replanning based on whatever the state of the situation is when we get to April. So we will keep teams apprised and let you know how it goes. But the plan is for 7-minute presentations with a 3-minute questions and answer period following each of those presentations. Okay. And then competition flight. It's going to be, so right now, basically we are playing it by ear in terms of how we're going to actually run that, and we will keep teams updated as we begin to find out more details of how that's actually going to operate. So just kind of watch for it. We're still planning for the launch in April. We're still planning for all the teams to be able to be there. There are some possibilities that we may have to have remote staging areas in the park. We've kind of discussed that as a possibility depending upon what kind of restrictions are put on us. And those would be something like in a different parking lot, we would have some of the teams located with a control member that would be able to tell them that they can take their rocket over to the launch stage at that point. So we may, depending upon the size of crowds that we're looking at as we start getting closer to those dates, we may see some different logistics than we would normally see for this type of a launch. So stay aware, stay flexible, and we'll make the whole thing work. And I think that's about it from my end. So unless Frank or Chris, if you've got anything else you want to share, now's the time. And then we'll go into some questions and answers.
Well, I'm going to make just a few references, and Connie or Frank, you guys can jump in. I know, my microphone goes on and the baby starts crying, just as kind of the way it goes. So, but we do have the Launch to Learn Rocket Workshop coming up. Is anybody on here attending other than Dr. Farrow? Are no students are attending the Launch to Learn? Are you all level 1 certified or higher?
When's this deal?
The workshop is, go ahead, Frank. It's the last weekend of January.
I get it.
It's the 29th and 30th.
Thank you.
Right.
So it's a Friday night and a Saturday. So if nobody on here is attending and signed up, then I don't need to.
We do have 2 people.
We do?
Yes, Dylan, you're signed up, right? And then
yeah.
Yes.
I think I signed up myself and the 2 students, Dylan and Ryan.
Okay, so then I will move forward. So the Rocket Workshop is scheduled for the last weekend of the month. We will be putting together packages, and the packages will include the rocket, kit for you, and then all of the supplies, even down to you'll have a pencil added, a ruler added, you'll have tape, you'll have epoxy, you'll have a drill and a screwdriver, making sure that every person on the team has all of the tools necessary to be able to build their rocket. Joining us for that, the Launch to Learn workshop will be Frank and Bob and Kevin. I will be in attendance. And then we also will have two folks representing AIAA, which would be Trent Cybella and Jane. Why am I having a freeze on Jane's last name? Jane
Denali.
Denali. I was like Dickler, and I knew that wasn't it. Jane Denali. And so they're going to be assisting us as well. We're looking forward to it, and we can't wait to have, I think right now we have 13 in attendance. Am I correct, Connie?
I think you are.
Yes, that's close.
Okay. And so I do believe we have those that are attending. We have folks from Marquette, from MSOE, UW Green Bay, UW River Falls, and UW Sheboygan. So we're excited. This is the first time that we're hosting a workshop like this for Collegiate Rocket Launch. It'll be great, and we're going to have some folks that are level 1 certified afterwards. So exciting days.
Perry, you've got your hand up. What's up?
Yeah, so I have the 2 students that are going from UW Milwaukee. One of them, at least, is a pretty tenacious and creative engineer, and we have, a lot of extra supplies from over the years. So are they able to utilize, extra things, or is it just based on like the kit that you guys provide? If they want to add some things to make it their own or be a little creative. I mean, I know it's just level 1, so it's just gotta launch safely, deploy and land and be, in flyable condition. But I don't know if there are any constraints on what they can do.
So number 1, Perry, as I'm looking at the list, I do not see UW Milwaukee confirming anybody attending.
Yes, we have Max and Andrew.
Okay, thank you, because I didn't see it on the list.
They're both new to the team.
Okay.
And so they didn't get back to me until just recently.
Okay. So Perry, when we go through the Launch to Learn workshop, everybody is building the same rocket, the same kit, and going through the identical process for certification. After that certification happens, individuals are welcome to do whatever they want with that rocket. They can add things, change things, make it a little bit different. But for the
sake of certification, just
thank you.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. I'll let them know.
Okay.
Just for the sake of certification, also everybody's building the level 1 rocket in the same way and same design, and we want to keep it that way. Like Christine said, after you fly a rocket and successfully do your level 1, you can do whatever you want to do to the rocket, and make a dual deploy or whatever. Just let us know, what you're going to do.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I think he's an electrical engineer, so I think he just really wanted to do stuff, with like cameras and other fun stuff. And, I figured I'd ask, but that's pretty reasonable.
Well, if you want to put a camera on the rocket, that's no problem.
No, it is no.
After
we're done.
After they fly and get certified, the rocket is theirs, and he can add the camera after that certification flight.
Yes. Okay. No variance from workshop day.
I'm just thinking, it's a level 1 rocket. You want to take pictures, but okay, it's all right.
Yeah.
I got a question really quick.
Yes.
Each team needs to have at least one member that is certified and gone through this, right? Or is that not the case?
That is our goal so that this is the first year. And so often, many years, we have not had individuals certified on the team. So that's part of the purpose of providing this program, Jordan, is to start getting students where they're certified. We're helping you to get level 1. And the goal would be that perhaps you'll be able to go on and get level 2. Once you get level 2, you have more capabilities within rocketry, especially with motors, etc. So anyways, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
And our hope going forward is to be able to run this workshop each year, or a workshop like this each year, where you can then bring new members in and get them trained up and have a way of fostering the growth within your team, carrying that knowledge forward and the professionalism and so on.
I would just say that I think this is an amazing idea. Having been, involved in this stuff for a couple of years and having all new students for the last 2 years on my teams, like having someone with some knowledge and just some interaction. I mean, you can't learn without doing. You can show them a million design reports and walk them through all the steps, but so this is going to be incredibly helpful for, I think, a lot of programs moving forward.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that. We've run this program for about 3 years with the First Nations Launch program. We have never done it virtual, so virtual is going to be a new test for us. But we've put quite a few students through the program, and it's been, I think, a great program. Frank, do you want to add on to that at all? Connie, I know you went through it yourself. So we have all but one person certified from all of our rocketry. But after this workshop, everybody on our team will have gone through level 1 certification. So even Connie is level 1 certified, which is exciting. Right, Connie?
That says a lot. I was an art major, so just telling you.
So Connie or Frank, do you have anything else you want to add about how the workshop goes or anything else?
I don't know how the workshop's going to go. It's going to be virtual. But no, the workshop was very successful. Worked out really good, especially when we got a chance to actually launch the rockets the next day or that same day after we got done doing a pre-check on the rockets. The teams thought it was very interesting, fascinating. They were into retrieving their rockets. They were into prepping their rockets. It was a good time, and luckily we had some good weather too with it. So it was a good time.
And we'll be coordinating with EEE to set up a time for students to be able to go to the field at a time that is convenient for them, and when EEE will be out at Richard Bong to actually get certified, whether it's now or if it ends up being the day of the launch.
Right. Does anybody have any questions about the logistics of trying to coordinate their components and avionics for the competition at all? Do you have any questions about the motor mount, the motor itself? Because I know you're gonna have questions when you get the part where you're going to be taking temperature for the motor, and you're going to ask which end should I put the temperature probe? Can I do this to the motor probe? Can I run this where or there? Speak your piece now if you have some of a semi-design knowledge right now.
Hey Frank, is there a specific place we should put thermocouples on the motor casing?
You can put it on the head end. You can put it on the back end. I brought out it's kind of a large motor casing here. You can cut holes on the side, on the end, on the aft end of the rocket, and put your sensor right there with a wire running through your motor mount ring. Or you can have a wire running on the exterior part of the rocket in a tube glued to the airframe.
So is it supposed to be like specifically attached to the casing with the fuel inside, or like the motor mount, or either?
Well, the sensor is going to be on the outside of the case.
Okay.
Correct. It's not going to be in the flame. It's going to be on the case because you'll burn it off on the flame. Another question came up. Well, my rocket's going to go to apogee, and the rocket's going to separate. So that means it's going to separate from avionics or from the brains. It's going to tell how hot my sensor was reporting. Well, you'll have to figure out either have the sensor do that, record the temperature from liftoff to burnout to apogee is fine, or you can have a small, depends how small and modular you make your sensing device. You can even have the sensor on the outside of the rocket in a aerodynamic shroud if you have it that way. And the wires only got to go so far then. It's up to you guys.
I have another question.
Question?
Sorry, go ahead.
I know those questions will come up, and don't forget about you must use motor ejection backup also. We have to allow for that.
My other question is for, I guess, either you and Dr. Farrell or both, but it's about, I guess, transmitting data. So we're planning on using combination of Raspberry Pi and XB. Frank, you kind of saw a little bit of that in the design report. We were planning to do something originally like that for Midwest a year ago, and it didn't really count as a commercial suite. So I just want to make sure that still, you know, since it's a modular thing that we came up with, it's not like a commercial data suite. It's just something that we're using to send live video and data to our computers. Make sure that's still acceptable.
So I've got a question in terms of, does it allow you to talk the other direction and control whether the system is in standby or active?
That's something we're looking at doing, because originally when we looked at this year's parameters and you had the detachable cable, you know, we thought we'd already, because we're using also a SIM to transmit via a cellular network. So it's XB as well as the SIM and the Raspberry Pi. And so there's the option to potentially do that. That's not something that we've totally gone through, but since we already have it worked out on how to transmit the data and the video already one way, my electronics lead suggests that it's definitely possible and for us to do.
So you're gonna want to really be careful that you can actually do that control, because there would not be a problem with letting it have the cable as well as then having that downlink after it's flying. That's
Right.
not a problem.
Okay, but you're saying we don't want it to interfere with the cable control.
Well, the key would be, ideally, we want to be able to have all the teams meet that same requirement of the cable. You could make a really good argument that that your system is robust enough to go both ways and allow it to happen, and we'd have to have some special demonstrations before the launch to get it verified. So there'd be a lot of pre-work on your team's part to really demonstrate and set any questions that we've got. Just get them answered and set that all to whatever, so that we can actually verify and say, yeah, go ahead and use it. Otherwise, there is not a problem with just having a micro connector on the outside of your rocket with that breakaway magnet. And then you've got a cable that's just used for that pre-launch control and confirmation, and then everything else you want to do can be done via your downlink. That's not a problem.
Right.
Okay, yeah. We're planning on testing it before, well, around the CDR. So, you know, hopefully if we have to make any changes or if it's anything substantial, we'll know by then.
So I believe Tripoli's goal is to have, how far away were you saying, Frank, was the table that'll be supplied for the teams from the launch pad approximately?
Probably about 230 feet. We're going to have you off to the side from us, and we're going to have you in view, and you're going to have full view of your rocket, and you know, a straight line shot for your rocket too, if you have to do a downlink with it too. So, yeah.
So baseline, we're just expected to have some sort of USB interface into the rocket. Kind of going off Perry's point, is, you know, having a wireless interface to actually view like standby mode, live, apogee, changing different parameters with, say, like the recovery. If you're using like a buzzer, you can enable that via like ESP32 interface over Wi-Fi to the rocket, things of that nature. Is that just like a level above? That's not really required. It's just the USB that's required at this point.
Yeah, the USB is the part that's really required. And like I say, that's going to be the standard. And if you want to implement something else, it cannot be a surprise. You have to be able to really demonstrate to the team that it's going to work. It's going to work every time. That it's secure and it's robust. That's the key. Before we'll say, yeah, you can use that without the cable.
And it's got to be, you know, that whatever the footage we're going to have the control person at, you know, at 225 feet. So like Dr. Farrow said, you know, it's got to be a robust device that if you're going to Wi-Fi it, you're going to be 200 some feet away from it. You know, you're not going to get that with a Bluetooth either.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, our teams are welcome to look into this too. We're using, with the Raspberry Pi, you can use a micro SIM and use this, like, basically you can do a prepaid cellular network. So you can go for miles and not have to worry about that.
Any other questions?
There's a 5-to-1 thrust to weight ratio that we noticed in just the rule book. How strict is that? Is it like, I don't know, what's the margin of error, I guess?
5-to-1.
So 5-to-1 is your minimum thrust to weight ratio. You can't drop below that. You don't have to have it you don't have to have exactly 5-to-1.
Right, it could be 10-to-1, 7-to-1, but not below 5-to-1. Yep.
Okay.
The reason for that is to get the rocket off the pad with enough speed that the aerodynamic surfaces, the fins, can take over and guide it so it goes the direction that it should go, not towards the people in the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
Any other questions out there? I'm not hearing any other questions. So
Well, you guys, before
any last comments? Sure.
Yeah, I do have a comment, and maybe somebody will think of something. But you know, as Dr. Farrow, I believe, said in the very beginning, you know, this is a great program, and we get really excited about you guys participating in it and all the other opportunities that there are within Wisconsin Space Grant. I know, Jordan, you just delivered a great video that we're going to be able to have up on the website talking about students that have participated in Elijah Balloon, and we have a couple other ones. So one of the opportunities that I want to make sure that you all are aware of is NASA internships. And they are accepting applications through March 5th for any of the NASA centers. And so if you haven't done so already, I do want to encourage you to maybe look and see if there is something, a position or some type of research that you might want to participate in at one of the centers. Because usually if you are a student who has already participated in a WSGC program, we will often put you to the top of the list of students to be funded from our state. So just encourage you to look and see if there is anything that is of interest to you. Any questions?
I had one more question. It's not related to that, though.
Sure.
For the USB extender, is there a certain connector on that? Or I remember you mentioned that the magnetic breakaway, like the one end is the magnet, then the other one is whatever you want. For the extender, is there a specific connector you guys are using?
So so as you're saying that, I'm gonna go back to that slide really quick because I want to kind of emphasize what's going on. So let me reshare my slides.
Number 9.
Thank you. Whoops, too far. There. There we go. So the key is one end has to be the standard USB 2 configuration that you would be plugging in, say, to the side of your computer or whatever. And then that's the other end, that it's your cable, it's your device you're connecting to. So as long as you've got a magnetic breakaway, that separable connector can be, it could be a lightning if you're using some kind of an Apple board for some reason. It could be a micro USB, a mini USB. It could be a USB-C connector. Whatever you need, you'll just need to purchase the cable that has that type of a breakaway end on it. But the other end, the USB, the end that connects to the computer, that's the end that has to connect with our device using that USB cable. So this device that we're working with, one end connects to your computer, this module, and it's powered by your computer. So it pulls compute power off of there just like a USB device. The other one is where your cable connects from your rocket, and then we have to supply, so Space Grant supplies the power supply that actually powers this module. And then between those two modules, we have a 200+ foot network cable that bridges that distance and lets them talk to each other. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Anybody last comment? Chris, Frank, Bob, Connie?
I had a quick question about reimbursement. Sorry.
Go ahead, Katie.
So I know that on the advisor award acceptance, there were 3 possible types of reimbursement, and we picked the one that was that the club would get reimbursed. So, Christine, do you want us to submit invoices quarterly for that, or do you want us to use the individual reimbursement form if we're doing a club reimbursement?
It would probably, what is your, I'm just trying to think, sorry. I'm trying to remember which is which. Why don't you guys do, because it's coming from the club, then you should do it on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And so we would submit the invoice forms on a, or doing quarterly invoice forms just from the club then, as opposed to, because we're not handling it like as a grant through our sponsored program office.
Right. You're just doing it through your organization. I mean, I think that makes the most sense. Okay. Connie, do you have any reason they should just do it with the other one? I mean, it's 6 to 1, half a dozen on the other, to be honest with you, Katie. You can do it either way. It just be consistent.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Yep.
Is there any, I know it's kind of early, I guess kind of early too, any word on this year's Wisconsin Space Conference? And just if how it'll be. I'm wondering more so for my teammates and for any like lower classmen, because like I'm graduating this year, but I've been for the last month or 2 emailing back and forth with the keynote speaker from 2 years ago about jobs at Sierra Nevada. So like, I mean, it's an amazing experience that I would love to see my team at least get to experience, if more could as well. So I don't know if there's any word on that.
Sure, I appreciate that, Perry. So MSOE is our host this year. So, and we begin official plans at the end of this month. And so we are going to have a contingency plan for a virtual conference. So if we are unable to meet in person, we will have plans to do a virtual conference this year. So I believe we already have one speaker, if I'm not mistaken. That's a definitive. And the only teaser I'll give you is it is somebody from one of the NASA centers, who's a real live, person working with some really cool things like AI.
Nice.
Oh, AEI, OU, or something like that. But anyways,
nice.
so we're excited. We're just, as you all know, we are being adaptive as we need to be in light of the.
Is there going to be a way for teams to still, especially ones that you guys sponsor, to present their, their project and their flights and stuff, so that they can still get some
Yes.
interaction?
Yep, that is the plan. That we're going to have oral presentations. We haven't quite figured out about posters. So we're gonna, like I said, our first meeting is in about a week and a half. And so we're gonna hit the ground running and should have most things decided and ready to put forward in the beginning of April.
So I think with that, we're coming to the end of our time slot. So I think we're going to call it a wrap for tonight. If you've got questions, again, if you've got questions about the actual rocket, contact Frank or Bob. If you've got questions about this connection equipment, you can contact me. That's probably going to be the easiest way. If you've got questions about the competition, the logistics, the reimbursements, and so on, that's going to be direct to Space Grant that you're going to want to contact. And our next meeting will be on the 11th. Hopefully I'm getting that date correct, which is it's going to be another Thursday evening connection. And we'll be doing it virtually like this again. So with that, thank you all for being here. And we will see you at least online in about a month.
All right, be safe.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.